joke.
What's up? What do you got?
Well, I was going to say you're not going to say anything for the next 20 minutes.
You never know. Probably won't, though. If I'm smart. Yeah. What's that? Nah, I don't have the time. Yeah. I wish I did. Got to start exactly at the right time. Yeah. It's like.
Well, I don't think it's live yet. Yeah, it is. Oh, is it live? Yeah. So
we ready?
Yep.
All right. All right. Good to see everyone. Before we get, to questions, just want to take a moment to recognize all the people that are involved in the draft process, our scouts, our football ops, medical, the coaching staff. There's a lot of hard work and dedication that goes into this, a lot of time away from families. So I just want to recognize that and tell everybody, thanks for that. We got a great team. We're really excited about where we're headed with the draft. We're 9 days away now. I really like where our board's at right now. I think we're in a good spot right now. I think we're going to be ready. I know we're going to be ready for all scenarios that may present themselves at pick 19. A lot of good players in this draft, a lot of guys that we like and that we're excited about. So it's going to be fun, and we're looking forward to that. I just want to mention we're looking forward to, the fans being out there. We're having a walk outside with our first rounder the day after the draft. So that'll be a lot of fun. Look forward to seeing a lot of the fans out there to greet our first round pick. I know that obviously he'll appreciate it, and I think the fans coming out here and people greeting him, I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and we'll definitely appreciate it, and I know the organization that will definitely appreciate it. So also beyond the draft, we're excited, to get our guys back in the building under one roof. We start the off-season program. So we're excited about getting the guys back in the building. I know a lot of the guys already been in here working out. Guys look great. A lot of guys off-site right now working out. Guys are working their butts off. There's a lot of excitement around the building. We're certainly excited where we're headed, the direction that we're headed as a franchise and as an organization. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions.
Dan, how different of an exercise is this for you guys from where you were picking at 8 and then when you were picking at 33 entering day one of the draft the last 2 years?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little different picking, on the back half of the first round. But it's really no different in terms of the process. I mean, we're going to be ready for any and all scenarios that present themselves. You don't know what guy's going to fall. A lot of things can happen unexpected. So we just got to be ready for any and all scenarios, and that's what we've been doing in the draft room every single day, is just planning for that and getting ready.
I know we've asked you a lot about NIL and its impact on the draft, but how much do you weigh the age and potential second contract situation with the first round pick, as well as injuries to especially notable ones entering Thursday?
Yeah, I think you definitely have to weigh it. I think it's definitely part of the evaluation process, but I also don't think it's everything, and it doesn't, take a guy out of the running because maybe he's 25, 26 years old. So, yeah, it's definitely something that we, weigh in, but it's not everything.
In January, you said you guys were going to pick up Bryce's fifth year. Will you wait and do that after the draft, or what's the timeline for that?
Yeah. We'll once the draft's over, we'll definitely get that going.
You guys have kind of done that the last few years, Icky, JC. if you know you're going to do it, why wait? Just from like the standpoint of, hey, you've made a decision already.
Well, I think obviously the player's not in the building yet, so once Bryce gets in the building and we're busy with the draft, it's off season, so we'll get that done as soon as he gets back in the building.
Dan, the other week at the owners' meetings, Dave said something about at 19 he doesn't think you can necessarily draft for depth. What does that mean to you?
I think, I understand what Coach is saying in terms of obviously you want your first-round pick to be able to come in and contribute immediately. So, yeah, I'm kind of with him on that. You want your first-round pick to play, but, there's different scenarios to where, maybe it takes a guy a little longer to develop, and he may not contribute right away. But, with some of the picks at different positions, it may take, a little longer for those guys to develop for sure.
Did in free agency, do you think that narrowed your focus positionally for 19, or does it
No, I think if anything, I think it opens us up to a lot of possibilities at pick 19. I think all positions are on the table, and like I said before, like you never know who's going to fall down to us. So I think we're definitely in the best player available mindset. I think what we did in free agency definitely set us up to do that.
Dan, obviously with your decision to eventually pick up Bryce Young's fifth-year option, this is a really important year for Bryce and for this offense. How much of a priority is it to get an extra playmaker on offense for him specifically?
I think, every year is important for everybody, including myself. We want to win. We're all committed to winning. I think, Bryce is no different. Myself is no different. We all are committed to winning. We all want to win. That's the ultimate goal, is to win a Super Bowl, bring a championship back here to Charlotte. In terms of playmakers, yeah, of course, we always want to add as many playmakers as you can on both sides of the ball, not just, a receiver. So I think, when we talk about the type of guys that we want to bring in here, we want guys that make plays, whether it's a DB taking the ball away or it's a receiver or running back scoring touchdowns. We want guys that are going to come in here and be playmakers.
I've heard you and Dave reference really wanting to know more about a player's story in addition to all of the facts and figures and stats. When did you adopt that as a priority in this process?
I think really us getting to know guys, myself, Coach Canales, Brant, our scouting staff, like when we're talking through guys, I feel like if you're going to miss on a guy, you're going to miss because you don't know the guy. You don't know what he's about from a personal character standpoint, and you don't know what he's about from a football standpoint. So we want to find out as much as we can about these guys as possible. Understand how passionate they are about the game, what they do, what they like to do away from the game, like where are they spending their time away from the facility. So I think all aspects of the player, we just want to know, get as much information as possible.
To follow up on that, the kind of the why of each player, how important is that when you're scouting quarterbacks? I know you brought up wanting to have a developmental quarterback. These guys during the process, how important is it to understand what makes them tick and how they can do that backup or third string job for a couple of years?
I think when you're a backup or even like a third string guy, I think those type of guys that you want to bring in are guys that are going to support Bryce and guys that also are competitors and they want to try to take Bryce's job, per se. So we want guys that are very supportive as teammates, but we also want guys that are going to come in and they want to compete and they want to be great.
Talked about the three phases of building a team. I think he said building, contending, sustaining. Said he felt like you guys are in between building and contending. How do you quantify that? And then how, as you approach the draft, how do you look to move from building to contending?
I mean, I think, our goal every year is to be a contender. That's the ultimate goal. We're all here because, we want to win. We all want to win. We're passionate about this team and this organization. So in terms of the building part, like, yeah, we're building a team, we're putting a team together, but the ultimate goal is for us to all compete at a high level, everybody to give their best every single day, and that's towards the ultimate goal, which is to win a championship.
Would you say you guys are still in the building phase, or would you agree with his assessment?
I would say we're in the phase to where we're continuing to add good players and competing. You know, I think we have a locker room full of competitive guys that are hungry to win. We're hungry to win upstairs, downstairs, around the building. So, yeah, I'm definitely not going to box us into we're building this thing. Yeah, we're always going to be building this thing, but make no mistake, like we're in the mindset of going out there competing to not just compete but to win championships.
Seen Joe Gilbert at a lot of the offensive tackle pro days,
Yeah.
some of the big names. How big a priority is that position, specifically at 19?
Yeah, you know, we send position coaches, not just Joe Gilbert, to different pro days. So it's not like, hey, we're just going to see all these offensive linemen. We're taking an offensive lineman at 19 or 51. So, yeah, I think the big thing is to, again, going back to what I said to Mike earlier, we want to get to know these guys as much as possible. So as much exposure as we can have, you know, with, you know, whether it's a tackle, whether it's a edge rusher or linebacker, like we want to get close to these guys. We want to get to know them not only as players but as people as well.
And it feels like every year each draft kind of takes on a different personality, like whether it's a quarterback year, pass rusher year, old, young. Just as you've gotten further and further into the evaluation, what is your biggest takeaway about this class?
You know, I think there's some guys in this class that we're really excited about, and I think, you know, that goes from first round all the way down to sixth round. You know, we don't have a seventh rounder this year. So, you know, I think it's our job to pinpoint exactly in those rounds who we have conviction on, who is our type of guy that fits our scheme, but is also going to fit our culture, fit in our locker room, and, you know, again, have that same type of passion that we've been talking about.
Dan, you guys had to release Aisha and open up cap space. He was a pretty big part of that defensive front. How do you feel about that group, but also how do you feel about the group in the draft at that, like, 3-tech, 5-tech?
Yeah, the Aishan, great dude, great leader. We'll definitely miss him around here. It's definitely just part of the business. But, you know, in terms of the defensive tackle class, I feel pretty good about it. I think it's a little top-heavy. But I do think there's guys that we like, that we've kind of pinpointed that we like. So I think if the opportunity arises, we would definitely add competition and depth there, you know, just like every other position.
And kind of building off that, Brant told us that y'all would have to make some room, the salary cap room. What's the timeline for those decisions?
Those are things that we talk through on a daily basis. You know, when we have to make the move, we'll make the move. But you know, there's different ways to go about that and figure it out. And you know, luckily I have Brant. Brant's really good at that, and you know, myself and him and Coach Canales collaborating. You know, we'll figure a way.
You've moved up and down the board in both drafts. This is a draft where a lot of teams have multiple first-round picks, multiple second-round picks. Does that make it easier to have those draft trade conversations, or does it make it so that maybe you kind of can figure out what other teams are doing from the standpoint of double-dipping and moving around?
You know, I know we don't really look at it like that. Like, we're, you know, even if a team has, you know, 1 second-round pick, it doesn't matter. Like, we're always going to be watching our board, seeing guys fall off the board, and as they fall off the board, you know, if we feel like we need to make a move because maybe there's one person at a position that we really like that's left, then we'll make a move if we feel like we need to make a move at that time.
Does the fact that you drafted a first-round receiver 2 years in a row make it less likely that you would do that again?
No, I think, with anything, we're going to take the best player. So if the best player we feel is at 19, I wouldn't hesitate to draft another wideout. I don't think there's a rule that says you can't draft a wide receiver 3 years in a row. So I'm not really going to, I'm not going to box us in and say we're not going to draft one.
I think you've had several in the building. What do you think of that group?
I think it's a good group. I think receiver, I think with all the 7-on-7 camps and kids growing up, like I feel like every year there's like wideouts that are super talented, guys that are, you can tell they've been doing it a long time. So I think it's another good class of wideouts, and, I think you'll continue to see it that way.
Tight ends.
Yeah, I think tight ends, I think there's a couple guys that are talented guys. I do think, there's some depth in the later rounds as well. So, again, if they're the best player at a certain point, we wouldn't hesitate.
Dan, you've had a couple quarterbacks come on 30 visits this offseason. Is that a product of evaluating them from a skill position perspective, from seeing if they're a cultural fit? Are you looking to draft a quarterback in a later rounds? Can you kind of just take me through your
Yeah, I think like bringing those guys in and bringing any guy that we bring in on a 30 visit, it could be for medical. It can be because we just want to get to know them a little better. We want to see how smart they are, if they can handle, a big playbook, and be able to retain it. So there's different reasons that we bring guys in for 30 visits. But usually it's just to, get to know the guys better and just figure them out a little more.
And going back to your tight end room, what are you looking for specifically in this draft to kind of mesh with those guys already in the room, but also offset the other weapons that you have on offense?
I feel good about our tight end room. There's a lot of guys in that room that are still developing. There's guys that have been here and we know who they are, and they bring a skill set that we really like. Again, like at every position, we're just looking for guys that fit, what we do schematically, and fit with our culture. So I don't know that we're looking for any, to answer your question, like any specific like skill set. We're just looking for players at all positions that can just make plays and really contribute to our team and our locker room.
What's your outlook on the nickel position, big nickel or just your base set, but also the post position in your defense?
Yeah, I think those are areas that we've talked about, and we do have some guys that we like that have played and showed they can play at that. But again, I'm going to keep repeating myself, like if, the opportunity arises and there's a post safety that we like, then great. We take a post safety. If there's a nickel that we really like, then at a certain point, then yeah, we'll do that as well. So I'm really, myself and my staff and Coach Canales, like we're all open to just drafting the best players that are on the board at the current moment.
To follow up on that, I know the pick comes down to you, but there are premium positions and there are non-premium positions. Do you feel like if there's a safety there or a tight end that falls and they are the best player on your board, that you feel comfortable given the analytics department and all the value and all that stuff, that you're willing to make a pick there?
Yeah, I mean, those are all things that we talk through, and we discuss it, and everybody has a voice in the room and everybody gives their opinions. Yes, ultimately I'm going to have to make the decision, but at the end of the day, it's a collaborative effort. We're all talking through all these scenarios, all the value. Those are all things we understand, and, again, we wouldn't hesitate to take a guy if we feel he's the best player.
With where you are and heading into year 3, do you think you'd be more inclined to move back, collect picks, or go up for a guy?
I think we philosophically we have an open-minded mindset. So again, like we're open to anything, whether it's moving back, whether it's moving up. If we feel like a guy can be an impact player for us, I do think all options are on the table.
Dan, when you talk about bringing guys in and getting to know them, what can a guy do during that visit to get your attention in a positive way?
I think it's really the way, again, they're going to make a lot of contact around the building, whether it's with our strength and conditioning, our medical staff, our coaches, the personnel staff. Like, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to interact with them during the day. We usually get together afterwards and talk that through and, hey, what did you think of the guy? What did you think of that guy? We go around and get their opinions, and maybe they act one way with me, but with a trainer or something, they're not as good of a guy. So yeah, I think it's really just to bring the guys in and like get to know them a little more, but not just me, not just Coach Canales, but like, is he going to be a fit in our building? Is the biggest thing.
Go back to tight end. How much has Bryce, you think, missed having that big target in the middle of the field, especially as far as able to expand what he can do?
Yeah, I think we have some guys on our roster that are big targets. I think in general, we have guys in our tight end room that we feel are good players and guys that have the skill set to be able to do that. And, I think opportunity, whether it's opportunity or whether guys are still developing, I think we have the pieces in that room to be able to do that.
Do you know which players will not be available for OTAs?
No, don't really know that yet. Still working through. I think obviously Icky, won't be available. But I think pretty much the rest of the roster, I think, is looking in pretty good shape for that.
Sander?
Yeah, JT's doing great. He's running, cutting, looking good. So optimistic.
Now, you said you started with 600. How many names are you down to now?
Oh, I'm not gonna give you that number. It's easier to give the big number, but I'm not gonna give you where we're at right now. But it's in a good spot.
Anything else? Thanks, Dan.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right.